Hello and welcome back. It's May 2026 and there's been yet another update to Photoshop with some good and maybe some not so good things being added to the program. So let's take a quick look and see what's been changed. So what we're looking at is the new version of Photoshop, version 27.6.0 as of May 2026. And there are a few new features and a couple of things that are a bit, why did they do that? And the first one we're going to look at is the addition of what's called the reflection removal tool, and it's migrated from Lightroom and from Camera Raw into the Photoshop menu. But there's a bit of a problem. Here's a RAW file that I've opened. It's a 16-bit file. If I go to the edit menu and want to come down to the reflection removal, there I can't access it. And that's because this reflection removal tool only works on 8-bit images. So I would have to then change my image from a 16-bit to an 8-bit image, and then I could access this tool, reflection removal. And the only benefit that I can see of using this within Photoshop is that it creates a separate layer with the reflection on it and then shows us a layer with the reflections removed. So let's just click OK, and this does take a little bit of time, so I'll stop the video and then restart it once it completes. Well, it says it takes 20 seconds, but it took quite a bit longer than that. So now we have three layers. We have the reflection removal layer, we have a reflection layer, and we have our base image. So here's our base image. There's a lot of reflections here. And what has it found? Well, this reflection layer supposedly shows what's been removed, and it sort of removed some of these reflections here, some here, but then if I turn on the completed layer, it's not taken out all of the reflections or these nasty ones right here. So it's a little bit of limited use. But the option really, it's a bit of a pointless exercise other than giving us these two extra layers. But if we were to go back to when we opened the image, convert it back to 16-bit, we could easily just go to the Camera Raw filter and access the same filter via the Remove tool, the reflections, and apply, and we won't bother waiting for this to complete because it does exactly the same thing, the only difference being we don't have a separate layer with the reflections on it. So I'm not sure if that's going to be of any benefit to anyone, but it's there as a separate tool within Photoshop now. So I'll cancel out of that and we'll go back to the Photoshop layer, and we've got our image with the reflections. But actually, if you did the same thing in Lightroom, you get a much better result. So let's have a look at it in Lightroom. So here we are in Lightroom. This is exactly the same image that we just worked on in Photoshop. And if we go into the Remove tool in the Develop module, come down to our Distraction Removal, Reflections, click on Apply, and it will go ahead and remove them. And what you can see here, I've already processed this once and I've just done it again. It's done a much better job removing all those nasty reflections. If I just hold down on the eye symbol here, you can see that's the before. All of those nasty reflections up at the top have been removed, and it's done a pretty reasonable job. Now, it's by no means perfect. If we zoom in, we can see that, yeah, it's a little bit sort of fuzzy and not particularly well resolved, but at least if you had an image that you just had to use and you needed those reflections gone, this at least, as long as it wasn't magnified too much, would be a usable image. So I'm not quite sure what the purpose is of moving this into Photoshop when it just doesn't do a good enough job to be worthwhile. So that's the first addition into the new version of Photoshop, which I'd give a 2 out of 5 for, because it's not really usable as it is. Maybe it'll be improved in versions to come, but at this stage it's not really any use to us. Now, the next update we have is the addition of some different AI models in the generative fill and generative expand options, and some of these may be of benefit, but again, you need to be careful because using some of these other models will use up credits that you may or may not have with Adobe. But let's see how it works. So here's a photograph I took in a city in Japan, and I had some unfortunate people standing around while I was doing my long exposure and wondering what I was doing, and I'd really like to remove this woman here. Now, I've already done this once, so I'm just going to reselect the person I drew with the lasso tool, and we just come up to our generative fill items on the contextual taskbar. And now when we click on generative fill, it opens up another toolbar, and if we look on the left here and click on the downward arrow, we have a number of different models that you could try. Now this might be handy if you're finding that the model that you're using is not giving you the results you want, but I'm going to leave it to the default one. Now if you wanted it to generate something else like an elephant on a push bike or something, you could type that in, but then of course we're no longer dealing with a photograph, we're dealing with a piece of graphic art. So I'm not going to deal with those sort of issues in these videos, because I think we're starting to verge into things that are not strictly photography. And even using this generative remove could be questionable in some people's minds, but let's go ahead and see what that does. Well, I've already done this, and I'm going to turn this on. Let me just deselect that, and it's generated 3 different versions as we normally get. And of course I have no idea what was behind that lady when she was standing there, but either one of those ones that it's thrown up look quite acceptable, unless of course you start to zoom in too closely and then you find that looks a little bit weird. Maybe this one, it's created some more of these sort of seats here, and then maybe the first one, it's created some sort of a wall. But to be honest, we're asking a lot of the software to do these things, and I think you just have to accept that at some point, if you really wanted to remove something, you've got to accept that what you're going to get is not going to be perfect. It's going to be created, and you'll just have to let that be. So there's other models here. Just be aware that you may end up paying for the use of those models, particularly the third-party models. So the next thing we're going to have a quick look at is another tool that's been introduced, and it really only works with photographs where you've created a number of different layers. Now, not everyone's as disciplined as I think I am, and that is when you create a new layer, you give it a name or you put something on there to remind you what it's all about. It's called the layer cleanup tool, and down on this little toolbar down at the very bottom here, we've got a little brush tool. If we click on that, you've got the options here. You can delete any empty layers and you can rename layers, and we can apply it to the whole document. Now I've already renamed a couple of these. Let's see what happens if I say apply. It'll go through and it's completed the cleanup and basically done nothing because I already had names on these things. So look, if you've not named your layers in particular and you want the tool to clean them up, yeah, it might be of some use to you, but yeah, it's a fairly minimal value. Let's just do that, edit, undo, layer cleanup. There's nothing to change. So that's maybe of some use for some people, but I wouldn't get too excited about that. So far we've had the reflection removal tool, not so great. The changes to the generative fill, yes, could be of use if you have trouble with generating what you want. And so far for our third one, the layer cleanup tool, if you're not disciplined in naming your layers, then yes, that's probably going to be useful to you, but it's not an earth-shattering addition. Now the next update to Photoshop is a bit of a change to the Actions panel, and the little symbol that we used to all know and love has now changed to this slightly different symbol, and if we click on that, we've now got quite a different look to the Actions panel. Now I'm looking here at what's called the default actions. These are ones that come with Photoshop. There's some essential ones here that are just some quick actions that are basically set to do what they say here. But then we've got, when it comes down to yours, that includes the default ones and then any that you've created yourself. So all of these things work, and what we used to do is we'd click on the action and then have to then separately press the play button. Well, they've changed that now. We just click on it once and it does the action all at once, which is probably making it a little simpler, cleaned up an unnecessary step. And as long as you get used to how this looks now, it's a little bit different, and it certainly is an improvement. Oh, and one other, or a couple of other things that I didn't mention is that in these actions, and we go to the Essentials tools, we've got these fairly simple options to adjust things like color balance and so forth. And if you just hover over them, it does give you a preview eventually. But if you scroll all the way down, we've got some other useful things that we can use. Again, some of these I would probably not use, but then we've got some things like where we can put guides on. We can quickly add these on if we're looking to work with our image. Some of those are not so useful. We've got some resizing options, which is very handy if you use social media. And we've also got some options here for exporting, save as a Photoshop, save as a PNG, JPEG, TIFF, etc. So there are some additional things now in there that are actually quite useful within the Actions panel. So here for our last or second last new tool we're going to have a look at. Here's a photograph that I've used previously of a viaduct in Scotland. And one of these new tools allows you to add an object into it and then move it around and rescale it. So I thought, why not bring in a photograph of a small boy holding a sheep somewhere in Peru, taken on a slide film. So that's how old it is. And I've imported that into this photograph, and I've just dropped the layer in. I've scaled it down to approximately the size I want. So now, what's this new tool? Well, we go up to the Edit menu, and we come down to Rotate Object. And Rotate Object is going to have to work in 8 bits per channel, so that's a little bit of a downside, but still, for most images, probably not a major drama. I'll click on Continue, and it's going to find the object or the subject within the frame. Now, obviously, in this particular image, it's pretty clear-cut what is the main object in the photograph that I'm wanting to use. And it's now going to prepare that and turn that into a rotatable object. So here we are. It's removed the background, and we've now got an image with some tools here, and I'm just going to move this up a little bit. So we can move the boy around, and I think I'd like him standing on this bit of stone here. That looks about right. I can scale him up or down, but this is the fun part. I can now turn him up or down, or sorry, scale him up or down. I can tilt him forward or back. So he's leaning backwards or he's leaning forward, maybe just leaning forward slightly. But then the really weird bit is I can rotate him. And of course there is no photograph of the back of this boy, so this has been entirely generated somewhere somehow. And of course it looks fairly believable. I mean, I wouldn't have a clue what the back of the boy looked like, but I can rotate this whole person around, and you'll see because he's a little bit off center, if I keep rotating him, he's going to keep going. It's done something a little bit strange with the sheep here. It's added this weird white eye, but look, you know, it's not looking too bad, and I can keep rotating until I find what I like. There's my young chap. Let's turn him around so that sheep's eye is a little bit out of the picture, and I can just tilt him forward a little bit, or I can tilt him completely over or completely back. Now, this is obviously verging into the realms of graphics art, and it's not really photography, but it's an interesting tool to have a play with. And so once we've done that, we can lock that in, and I click on Done up the top here, and it will enhance that image and bring it back to something that's a little more useful. Now, I suspect that in the process of extracting this from the background, it's changed the image very slightly, but again, it's a tool that you can have some fun with, and that it's going to also sit fairly well, you know, if you're wanting to create something. So here he is, and it looks pretty realistic, apart from some shadows perhaps. But we can go even further. I'll turn that layer off because I created this one a little bit earlier. I made him look a little bit differently. And what I can do then is we have the option now of going up and going to the toolbar up here, where I can click on the option that says harmonize. And what it's going to do is going to try and harmonize the colors of the figure I've added with the background. And again, what it tries to do is look at the colors and try and create something that's going to match the overall picture. So bearing in mind that there's a few obvious flaws, such as the position of the feet and so forth, but again, with a little bit of manipulation, you could come up with something that's quite believable here. And as long as you're using your own photographic elements, I think we can still count this as photography, even though we've verged into creating a composite image. And as long as you acknowledge that it's a composite image, then I think that's fine. If you're using other elements created by other people, then it's no longer your photograph. Now, it's done a job here of trying to harmonize the colors of the boy with the background. And if I turn that off and on, you'll see that it's actually darkened an area around him. It's dulled him down a little bit because the overall photograph is a little bit darker. And the fact that, he almost looks as though he's standing there with the sheep. So that's quite a lot of fun. And the very last thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at one of the other tools that we've got, and that is if you ever use text in your photographs, we know that we can create a text layer and we can do some fun things with it. And now we've got some even better tools. If I double click on the text to select it, we've now got this little fantastic tool here. It's called the dynamic text, and it creates a box around the photograph, the text rather, and I can, or I would be able to if I'd done this correctly, change the scaling of the text, or I can bring it back down, make a single line, make a larger box, and it does all sorts of fun things. Again, if you don't use text and it's not really of any use to you, I'll do that again and go back to where it was, or eventually. So you can have some fun with the text and make it a little bit larger or a little bit taller, and it does this sort of automatic scaling and changing of the text. So if you use text a lot in your photographs, or if you're making a book and you want to do a book cover, that's a tool that's going to be useful. There are some other additional tools that have been added into Photoshop, and as I said, they're verging more into more heavy use of AI and creating things from nothing, and we're not going to look at those in this video. And I think there's a few good tools here. There are a couple here that are a bit ho-hum, and there are some that are a little bit fun to use. So there's quite a few enhancements, well worthwhile having a look at. So I hope that's been useful, and thanks for watching.